Good morning, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. So I was hoping to have a shot at streaming last night, but I got off work super late, got home even later, and then on top of that, I took a beating. It was a 90-degree day, 71-degree dew point, so you can imagine what the heat index was. It was crazy. My body just was not gonna hack it. So unfortunately, I did not get to go live. It was pretty crazy, apparently. So apparently there were up to about 7 tornado reports from what I heard. Actually, it's gone down to 6. But there were multiple damaging wind reports, some of which were even significant, and also some very large hail, up to 400 reports total. So pretty active day across the board here. So if anyone was looking for me yesterday, I do apologize. I really am sorry. Just until I can get a better job that makes good money and works well for me, I'm just kind of stuck in this position during the during the weekends. If there's a severe weather event, I'm almost certainly able to cover it. But anyway, we do have more severe weather potential this weekend, including a slight risk for today and a marginal risk for tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. As we are, make sure you're hitting that like button. Also, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Also, making sure that you get the bell on to be notified every video. Make sure you have the notifications set to all. And then, of course, if you find this information useful, share this video. I just bumped my vitamins down. Anyway, so here's the setup for today. From Amarillo and Lubbock all the way into northeastern parts of New Mexico, very familiar territory. This also includes Roswell, New Mexico. Slight risk. This is, like I said, familiar territory. Pretty much all of May and a good portion of June you were looking into this region here. So all hazards are possible there. And then there's also a threat for severe weather over here towards the northeast here, into the Ohio Valley and even into the Tennessee valleys, southeast, stretches even into my hometown, which is Atlanta, all the way into, really, I think this goes north of the border too. Fortunately, I don't have a map that allows me to look at that, but pretty much Detroit and Watertown all the way dead south pretty much. All hazards are possible with this. There's even a 2% tour risk in both of these areas, albeit they are small. But Watertown all the way towards Buffalo and towards a couple of the Great Lakes here, Erie and Ontario, we're having to watch you. Rochester and Buffalo, you're in there, as well as Pittsburgh. Then Amarillo all the way towards Roswell, Clovis. You guys are in this secondary 2% region. But the main threats for today are wind and hail. No real surprises there. Lean a little bit more towards the wind threat with this setup here, off towards the northeast and into the south. I think hail and wind here a little bit. The hail and wind chance here is a little bit more equal. But nonetheless, though, plenty of stuff to keep an eye on for today as far as that's concerned. And then, of course, tomorrow, right now we're only sitting at a marginal risk, but there's a chance that both of these areas could be upgraded. I definitely lean more towards this area off to the west being upgraded, but can't say that this wouldn't be upgraded as well. We're going to have to see how things progress throughout the day. It would not surprise me to see a slight risk tomorrow, though. Pretty much a similar deal. There's no tour risk right now. The main threats would be wind and hail. So areas we would be looking at: Peoria, Springfield, Illinois, all the way towards McCook and Colby in Nebraska and Kansas here. Kansas City are right on the line, so areas to the west of that I would be watching in particular as well. Unfortunately, with this secondary marginal risk, I see Burlington, Vermont, and probably the capital, Montpelier. Montpelier, which is under the gun yet again. In case you didn't know, Montpelier has been dealing with a major, historic flooding situation, and looks like more rain is on the way. So definitely keep those people in your thoughts, and if you have the ability to donate to them, I would definitely urge you to do so. Some other areas in this 5% area would be Richmond, Virginia, we have DC and Baltimore in there as well. Philly, New York, Scranton, Binghamton, Albany, Rochester, and Watertown again. Again, the main threats are wind and hail with this one, but flooding is also a big threat. We're actually going to go ahead and take a look at the graphics for that. So as far as the flood threat today, even though the marginal risk is only a 5% chance, about 181 million people are under the gun for that. The slight risk, we are up to about maybe 1 million people in that. But the real interesting thing will be tomorrow. 15 slight risk, by the way, is a 15% chance of flash flooding, at least a 15% chance. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and look at tomorrow, and this is where things get kind of bad. That is a very big moderate risk that's popped up here, and it's in a very familiar area. And look where what we see here. It's Montpelier again in that moderate risk for flooding. A few days earlier, they were in a high risk, which is a 70% chance. Those are very rare. I think I've only ever seen a high risk for excessive rainfall issued maybe once or twice before, and then it's not something you see every day. And it's even rare to get a moderate risk even sometimes. So the fact that we're seeing this again in an area that's already been heavily inundated with rainfall is definitely alarming. May go live tomorrow just to try and cover this, but man, you hate to see this. That's all I really have to say about that. Can't disinclude anyone that's in the slight risk here. So Boston, look out, as well as New York, Philadelphia here as well. And then also, even into Maine here, we have to be on the lookout for flooding. This is at least a 15% chance, so that could be higher than that. But this is usually like between 15 to 39. So assume that it's between 15 to 39%. But yeah, between 40 to 70% is what you would expect, or 40 to 69% for the moderate risk. Definitely need to be making sure that we're looking out for flooding. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the wind pattern here, because this is what's going to be the setup, the fuel to all of our storms. And then we're going to start to take a look at the country as a whole. So here we are looking at this afternoon. This is the trough that's developing. This is going to be the catalyst behind our storms. This is going to be the area of low pressure that helps kind of get things going here. It's not going to have a huge influence as far as the lift is concerned because of how far away it is, but nonetheless, it's still going to cause more than its fair share of problems. So if I were to look at things from this height here, this little pocket right here is what would interest me the most at the moment. So I'm going to click towards South Texas or southeastern Texas, and what do you know? Marginal tornado tag. This was in our 2% area. So no contamination here. It looks like lapse rates are pretty high, so the hail threat is a little bit more amped up. We could see a hatch risk with this a little bit later. Then also, as far as kinematics are concerned, we're not seeing anything super crazy at the low levels, which is a relief. But there's plenty of energy for this storm to develop, plenty of instability. So like I said, everything's on the table here. Would I see any crazy would I expect to see any crazy supercells? You never know, because we're near the mountains too, and the mountains add a new factor in with the little wave that we end up coming off the downslope here. So we need to be keeping an extra close eye on that. You get to about 500 millibars, and what we'll see here is a pretty similar look. Better look at that trough here, because it's a low to mid, high to mid level trough here. Here's that focus point of low pressure. Didn't mean to do that, but as a whole here, you can see that little bit of energy coming off of the southwestern flank of that low pressure here. That northwest to southeast motion here is going to be a key indicator of what's to lie ahead here with this storm setup. And it's really off those little flanks there where we start to see that tiny little surge right here. That's where we have to be watching out for the threat of severe weather here. I don't expect a big line to develop until later in the evening. I would expect that to happen more so towards the Panhandle. So supercells could be possible over here towards northeastern New Mexico. And then, of course, as time goes on, we'll see that progress into more of a linear event. As far as what's going on here in the northeast, here's what we have here. This little small area of increased wind on the flanks of that, we probably will see some storms develop as well. And as a result, we could see a little bit of severe weather. I'm going to check out one of these little soundings over here in just a minute. We're going to keep this video rolling here to try and make this go by a little bit quicker for you guys. But this is the setup for Sunday. I kind of expect more development earlier in the day. It doesn't really seem like we're going to get too much in the way of activity late in the day. So this is looking towards Iowa. As of right now, it's not a very ideal environment at this point, but we're in the morning hours. By the time we get towards afternoon here, there you go, voila. It's nothing like I said before, again, nothing super impressive at the low levels here, but nonetheless, if we were to look at instability, there is a little bit there. There's subpar lapse rates at best. As far as the energy helicity, nothing really impressive there. It's another key area of development when it comes to thunderstorms here. So, like I said, not a lot going there, but definitely something to still keep an eye on throughout the day. Then here's where the issue comes in for the northeast here. You can see at 500 millibars, you usually get a pretty good indicator of storm motion or storm direction. So whenever you see these barbs going this way, that's usually a good indicator that the storms will be moving off to the northeast. The problem with that is we see that over the water too, so we're getting increased moisture flow over these areas, so these storms will have plenty of precipitable water to work with here. So this is where the flood threat will be coming into play here, and unfortunately it's been over areas that have been getting pretty much inundated with rain here. So again, looks like a pretty dangerous situation unfolding once again. So if we were to look at the low-level jet here, this is just to kind of cap off the potential tornado threat for today. Tomorrow, it doesn't really look like much of anything. If something does change, I'll make an update video, of course. But as far as the low-level jet is concerned, it's interesting how things start to pop up here at O2Z, and this is going to be really the key factor behind everything. Also, it looks like there's a little bit of inhibition that this storm system could be dealing with here. So if this does fire, it will have a little bit to fight against. But if they develop beforehand, these could probably get going. There are some decent analogs here. Like again, even despite the low-level jet getting going here, we're struggling to get the 20 knots. So it's kind of a touch and go type thing. This upgrades a little bit. We could see some really interesting stuff coming into play here. As far as other parameters are concerned, it's not the worst that I've seen. It's not insane or anything like that, but it's not impossible to see a tornado. I definitely lean more towards damaging winds and hail, though, for sure on this one. But that's what the kinematics look like. And then if we were to go all the way into the dew points here, this is the thermodynamics. If you listen to Chaser lingo, this is usually what they're talking about. Kinematics is wind, thermodynamics is the moisture and the temperatures, lapse rates, and more. But where the setup today comes into play, here's a little moisture nose right here. This is usually a key component when it comes to severe development. When you get a nice little plume of moisture beginning to develop here. But yeah, just watch this area right here that I'm circling as we head later into the evening. Dew points are in the 60s right now, and it's going to be maintained throughout a good chunk of the day. So I'm going to actually get this moving again. But yeah, look at that little nose that becomes really well defined as we get towards OZ, and then as we get towards O3Z, it holds out. By that point, we're going to start to lose instability. We're going to look at that in just a moment here. And then also what we have to keep an eye on is over towards the northeast. So the air's plenty saturated over there, so that's moisture is not going to be an issue, unfortunately. And then if you look where I live, dew point's 74, which is unbelievable. I'm glad I'm not working today. But sheesh. Over here towards the eastern half of the country, dew points will not be an issue as far as severe weather is concerned. Just because you have a high dew point doesn't guarantee that you'll get it, but it could amplify or juice up any thunderstorms in your area a little bit further. Because while Cape doesn't go necessarily hand in hand with dew points and high temperatures, it can still end up ripening the atmosphere for storms and making them a little bit stronger. Usually, though, you can see an increase in Cape as a result of that. So it's funny how all that works. I could talk about it for hours, but I'm not trying to waste too much of your time here. That being said, here we go into Sunday. Look at the dew points as we head later into the day here into the 70s, this far north. That's unbelievable. And this is going to persist as we head into the morning here. So on Monday. So as a whole, looks like it's going to be some pretty. It might be some tough sledding. It might be an unfortunate situation once again developing here. These dams are already at their limits, especially in Vermont. So, again, if you can help them out, send some supplies, send them some money, definitely would urge you to do it. So, now that we've looked at that, here's the temperatures for everybody as a whole. I mean, it's summertime. I'm just going to go on and say it. I mean, no real surprises here. It's going to be hot across the board, so just make sure that you are, make sure you have your summer clothes on you. Make sure you're comfortable. Don't allow yourself to overheat. And if you can, unlike me, try to avoid spending extended periods of time outside. Try to have somewhere where you can go into the shade and cool off a bit. Also, sunscreen would probably be a good idea as well. So that's what we're looking like as far as temperatures are concerned here. We're going to go ahead and look at the Cape for everybody as a whole here. The higher the Cape value, the greater chance you would have of seeing severe weather if a storm were to form over your area. Interestingly enough, this is another pocket where we could see a marginal risk maybe develop here. I haven't seen anything quite yet over towards Texas and the Arklatex region. Maybe even parts of Oklahoma here. This has expanded a little bit further to the east here. They could upgrade that to a slight risk. I'm doubtful though at the moment. But nonetheless here, that mixed layer Cape is looking pretty impressive there. So look at the Cape that starts to develop over towards this region that I was interested in as far as Sunday was concerned. This actually does look like it could be more considerable later into the evening, but again, kinematically it's not very impressive. There is a little bit of inhibition here. We'll have to see if this ends up turning into anything at all, but as of right now I'm kind of skeptical about that setup. We'll see what happens with that. So as far as today's setup across the Northeast, really in this area I expect Cape to be a little bit more limited. You still are getting into the 1700 to 2000s range as far as mixed layer and surface Cape. So it's not like you can't see severe weather, but likelihood's going to be a little bit lower here. In fact, in this case, normally you would see the surface Cape being higher. It's actually the mixed layer this time that's higher. So a little bit, maybe a little bit more stable here. Interesting stuff going on there, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely be on the lookout for severe weather this afternoon and into the evening. And then here's our other area that I was interested in here. This is the area where I think tornado threat's going to be the highest. And we're at about 1900 to 2000 pretty easily. The yellowish orange here definitely is into the 2000. We'll go ahead and click another sounding again, and there you go. Like I said, kinematically at the low levels, still a bit of a question mark. However, those mountains often add a little bit of extra effect, a little bit more to this setup, a little bit more oomph, if you will. But as a whole here, Looks like we have some pretty active weather ahead. We also can't rule out the southeast here and Ohio valleys, as they also have a pretty high cape as well. But this is tomorrow, and heading into Monday, we could see yet another severe setup, this one being more persistent, maybe across parts of the Ohio Valley, maybe even parts of the Central Plains once again. So, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather as a whole for everybody. We already talked about our area of severe weather. We'll take a look at that a little bit more closely in just a minute here. But seems like widespread areas of showers and thunderstorms across the eastern half of the country. Towards the western half, it looks like it's a little bit more quiet. Northern tier, you could see something from this low pressure coming in. More so during the morning hours. I wouldn't expect anything significant from it. Maybe towards the week, or maybe even the middle of next week, we could see something yet again. But we're starting to get into that classic positive PNA setup where it's a little bit hotter off to the west and a little bit cooler to the east, although it's not bringing a whole lot of relief for us. So nonetheless, a lot of moving parts there. And then last but not least, of course, we're going to look at our areas of interest for severe weather. We'll start out with the western area. And here's the supercells that I would be more concerned about. This is about 22Z, so I would say probably about 4 or 5 o'clock. This is like right on the line between mountain and central time here, so it's going to be a little bit interchangeable. This will be about 4 o'clock Eastern, so about maybe 1 or 2 o'clock these go. And then by the time we get towards about 5, 6 o'clock, that's when things really start to ramp up here. This forms into an MCS, maybe even a little bit of a bow echo trying to develop here by O2Z. I don't think this would last for an extended period of time though. By O4Z, once we're getting towards about 9, 10 o'clock, a lot of these storms are starting to weaken by this point. So I guess now we'll go ahead and take a final look here. Uh-oh, I didn't want to do that. Sorry, I had to fix that. But this is the northeast today. Widespread showers and thunderstorms. A lot of these seem like they're staying more so north of the border, but towards the end of this here, this is where the storm's starting to come in here for the day today. So like I said, not expecting widespread severe weather, but there could be a couple of pockets here where these storms become more severe. I'm leaning more so towards the Ohio Valley. If there were any chance of a upgrade to slight risk, it would be right off the lake here towards northern Ohio, maybe even into Michigan. But we'll see what happens. But that's all I got for you guys on this video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This ran a little bit longer than I expected. Kind of apologize for that. I kind of nerded out. But hey, you can also sense the enthusiasm. But this has been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. You guys take care. Have a nice day. And probably will be live tomorrow. If things get crazy today, I will be on then too. Till then, take care.